Took a ride down memory lane. Long gone are the monuments the strip malls replaced. The thought is sweet, but it's bitter to taste. The moment passed and the times have changed. No, you can't have it back. You can't live in the past. I won't go into uncertainty without my memory of what we used to say. It's with me still today. The kids from way back when are with us once again. Broken homes line memory lane, all haunted by arguments, struggle and pain. You ran away and swore your life would change, but broken hearts never heal the same. No, you gotta take it back. You gotta learn from the past. I won't grow without the memories of who I wanted to be. You seek and then you pay. Let wisdom light your way. The kids from way back when are in you till the end. Just to ride down memory lane. Let's take a ride down memory lane.
Yes. Hello, folks. My name is Michael Peters. I'm your host at the Bands of Bakersfield Podcast, and we're under the PodBelly Network. The man singing that song was Jason Turner. And what was the name of that song?
Memory Lane.
Memory Lane. And we also have longtime friend Sky Johnson here. He's going to be chiming in on a tune a little bit later. Producer, all that. So, well, you go ahead. What all do you do with Jason?
Yeah, well, I'm a collaborator with him on our group High Voltage Arcade, and I do a lot of the production for that as well.
Sweet.
So I'm really excited to be here.
Sweet. And then you're the main songwriter, if you will, for High Voltage
Yeah,
Arcade.
I think it's pretty split evenly in this band. But, you know, in previous bands, I was like the principal songwriter.
Sure.
And that's what I consider myself for sure. Like before, like an artist or even like a musician, I think like I just got into music to write songs and express myself that way. So
awesome, man. It is the first time we briefly mentioned earlier. I haven't heard you sing in person in like 2 decades. I think we're close to it at least.
Yeah.
It's really nice hearing you sing, man. And what was that song about? And it's an old one. I said that's a throwback, or for you, it's a song you wrote a while ago, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a couple of years ago,
Okay.
I released an album during, you know, COVID and everything. You know, I had, well, I guess to back up just a little bit before then, I had a record deal in 2008 and toured nationally with a band called Step Sunday. And the my friend who produced that album, his name was Nick Rucker. He was based in LA at the time, and he moved to Asheville, North Carolina when kind of everything shut down during COVID, and it was really hard to live in LA at that time and work. And so he moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and he was out of work. He wasn't touring, he wasn't getting a lot of work. And so I said, why don't we make a record together? And, you know, from 2008 up until that point, I kind of had a block, you know, not in creativity. I just wasn't finishing what I started, and hadn't released music for a really long time. And it seemed like a really good time to be creative. I mean, if nothing else, to just kind of preserve your sanity. Just keep going, not because it's what you do, but as a creative and as a musician, it's just who you are, you know? So just for me to be in my natural state of creating something so I didn't feel sick, you know, in the head or you know, worse, because that happens, I think. I'm sure you're the same, right? If you're not being creative, if you're not doing music, you kind of feel a little lost and a little sick. So it seemed like a great time to make a record. And I'm not ashamed to say too, I was also like kind of doing cognitive behavioral therapy too. And so mental health was just a big part of it. Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, I was doing it before COVID. So that's how screwed up
same.
I am.
And so I just felt like it was good to have a framework for an album like that. And so they were all kind of based in thinking and emotions, and so Memory Lane was definitely about kind of nostalgia and memory and cognition, and maybe how we remember things differently. Memory's kind of unreliable, given, you know, like I think even when we look back on our stories and pictures and Instagram, I don't think we remember things totally correctly. And so so Memory Lane was like kind of like, hey, I remember the good old days, you know, just kind of looking back a little bit. Part of it was growing up in the Bakersfield music scene, and I guess through rose-colored glasses, and like it was better back then.
It was as good as the rose-colored glasses. My memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, then our memories are reliable. I was wrong.
Totally wrong. Everything's wrong.
I was wrong to write that song.
Yeah, that's cool though, man. I think everybody wrote some songs or got some new skills or got better at old skills through that time. You know, that was the thing to do, which was good. That was a lot of good stuff came out of that time. As bad as it was, you know what I mean? A lot of
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when Sky and I kind of reconnected too. We grew up in the Bakersfield music scene, and we were collaborating on that whole year's album. And it just felt really good to collaborate and get feedback too, and to finish songs, because there'd just been like a pile, you know, in like a decade. You know, I was helping other people out, bands, but hadn't released an album in like 10 years at the time.
I feel like I was able to get a connection on there because you had posted something on Instagram about something like you wanted some synth pop or something like that. I was like, dude, I have something for this and I need something to work on. And then we just reconnected that way.
That's natural, you know what I mean? Just kind of time and place, all that timing, all that good stuff happens when it's supposed to, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was kind of serendipitous, an answer to prayer for sure for me, because I felt, like albums have always been my thing, you know. I feel like we kind of touched on this before starting, is I grew up in a time where the album was the thing, and I love being in the studio. I love that process. I love collaborating with other people. And so to record an album remotely too, that was interesting, just to kind of send files back and forth. I kind of proved to myself that it was possible to do with another person long distance. But the album was always the thing to me. You know, I grew up just sitting with albums. I'm sure you were the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Liner notes, pictures, learning all the musicians' names, and reading lyrics, and
the producers.
Yeah.
It always has the record label. It's all on the back of it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still buy CDs too. I still collect movie soundtracks from 1989 to 99, because that was a big deal.
Sweet.
To me, but I think that might be lost a little bit, because it seems like I don't want to sound cynical, but it seems like a lot of artists nowadays, the whole reason you exist is to play shows and tour. And the album is like, whatever new album you produce is like, it's material for the tour and it's a commercial for the tour. Like, oh, we got new stuff to share with you, so go see us on tour, because that's the only way we can exist.
The album's like a weird sideshow too.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't seem right to me, because when you think about like artists around the world, you know, they license their work to just chill out in a gallery, and they still get paid for it. They're honored for the work that they do, and people sit with that work and they absorb that work, and they're inspired by that work.
Look at it as much as they want over and over again.
Yeah, they don't have to pack a painting on a plane and just take it around everywhere in order for it to be impactful and to say what it needs to say. But I also accept, you know, now that's the reality. It's just it's the reality that you have. Like, times have changed. People aren't paying for albums anymore. So I got to kind of just grow up, even at, I'll be 40 next month, but. Right
on. I totally picking up what you're putting down. And completely, I agree. You know, I like the albums. I miss the album thing, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's part of life, I guess. Wanted to talk a little bit about, you mentioned you guys both grew up in the Bakersfield music scene together, so clearly you guys are from Bakersfield, at least for the most part. Don't know if you're born and raised here.
Wasn't born, but raised for sure.
And then
I was born here.
Same thing? Okay, cool. And then how old were you guys when you met, roughly?
Teenagers, right? We were like high school.
Definitely high school
Okay,
age.
cool. So I definitely remember some earlier Project Lost Ocean. I remember Rocky V, you know.
Rocky V for sure. Yeah. And that was, I'm like, recordings really exist for local bands when we were in high school.
Albums,
like it was EPs that you went to Pig Studios or was it B3?
Oh, I didn't even get
B2,
that.
B2.
Bryant. Yeah.
Yeah, B2
Or
Studios.
James Ratliff's living room.
James
off California Avenue.
Ratliff. Shout out to James Ratliff,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Shout out to Norfolk and Brother before then, and
Yeah.
so many good songwriters in Bakersfield. But that was inspiring to be a part of. I think growing up is, you put a little bit of money together. Your band pulled like $350 together, and you got maybe 4 or 5 songs locally, and you burned your own CDRs and did your own artwork, and
Or sometimes they didn't have artwork.
it was just the CDR.
Just wrote with a
Sharpie. Sharpie.
Yeah.
That was what was happening for sure. And my first bands were punk bands. It was that kind of that third wave of California punk with like Green Day and Blink-182, and Rocky V was a band with my brother and some other high school kids. And I remember we were like, I can just speak for me. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the band, but there were bands growing up that had like a sound, that was, kind of singular. And I respect that, but I've always been interested in bands with songs, and I always wanted to be a band with songs and spend extra time on the songs. And sometimes you get lucky and you have both, where it's like an interesting sound and, songs, but it was that heavy kind of rock. We were like pretty inspired by that band Diary with Pablo Alaniz.
I remember Diary.
Yeah, he was a great songwriter. I feel like his band, it was at the time Jeff Mulkey, Derek Vaughn, Nate Hendrick, and Pablo Alaniz. They had that balance. They were really inspiring to play shows with and go see.
Sound and songs.
The balance. Yeah. I think like early on that impressed me. There were plenty of bands that were technically kind of, going for it. I mean, you come to mind as far as guitar players go,
I had no idea what I was doing.
Neither did I, but we were kind of finding each other and finding our way together, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No one knew what we were doing.
No.
Yeah, and we still kind of don't. We're just kind of just winging it,
You go
Finding
back
our
and
way.
listen to some of this stuff, and you're like, that was. I don't know why that's on the. I wish that wasn't permanently recorded, but
but it's not embarrassing to me. It's a document for the time. It's like a historical document.
You sounded then.
Yeah, I was a teenager. I'm not going to apologize for being young and inexperienced, but I was on the road to something, and I think we had people that supported us, and but I just remember wanting to impress the bands all the time. Like the shows you play, you want to like impress other songwriters and impress other bands to get more shows. And that was, all ages shows. That was like every weekend there was something to go.
Like every weekend till like 12 a.m. I remember Jerry's or the Gate was similar.
Right.
Like constant all ages. All ages venues and constant bands playing. It was just like I didn't realize how cool of a time. I mean, I went all the time, but I didn't realize how awesome it actually was until now. It's a little bit different in Bakersfield,
I think we were too young to appreciate it and kind of took it for granted a little bit, but definitely a shout out to Nate Berg and Rob Allison. They created a space for kids to not get in trouble all the time.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have something like that to keep me busy. Like that I love doing,
I would eagerly await every month's new Jerry's flyer.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Because it was like those are like living doc, and like looking back at those,
still got some.
Yeah. I wish I had them.
I kept mine in a box. Yeah, but
that's cool.
It was crazy time. And if you didn't go to Jerry's though, like Jerry's and the Gate were like central hub, and if you didn't go to these places and you wanted to be in a band or start a band or have a place to showcase your music, and you didn't go meet some people, none of that stuff was going to happen for you if you didn't go to these places, which ended up being really cool because my caveman self, my buddy invited me to do, because there was mosh pits. I'm like, you mean with to slam into people? Cool,
Yeah.
And then I went, and it turned out that I really enjoyed the live. I think I actually want to do what they're doing there and not run around in a circle, but it made me have to be exposed to more live music, learn.
Right.
and then meet people and also learn and start my own group. You know what I mean? So
I totally agree.
great.
Like as a young person, you have to see that it's possible.
Yeah. It was
Like, you're like, oh, this person's in high school too. They go to high school with me.
Totally.
They started a band. How hard can it be?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's about how I thought too. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you find out that it's very hard, but but really fun at the same time. You know,
I think it's hard to keep a band together.
it's extremely hard to keep a band together. It's like making money. It's easy to make money. Keeping the money once you made it, you know, it's tough. You know, that's what I know. There's two parallels there. It's hard. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that for sure.
Yeah, schedules and musicians and
You mentioned something that like if you weren't there during the moment, it was kind of like a movement, you know, our version of a musical movement.
yeah,
In that all these
Totally.
young people are starting bands and supported each other, and there was a place for us, there was a space for us to actually perform and develop.
nationally bands constantly coming through. Like,
Yeah.
the CBGB of the West that was thrown around a lot.
I
back
think
then.
you're right about that, in that like you know, now I'm not a business owner, you know, like I don't have a business savvy, a sense of, and I'm as a creative, I've never been able to monetize anything creative I've ever done. So when I look at a thing like Jerry's now, and like I respect that they're a restaurant and they're trying to like be, you know, restaurant and a pub and you know make money to survive as a local business, but to what Jerry symbolizes is deeper than that, and to have it as just, oh, this is just a restaurant. We have 21 and over shows when we used to be all ages and used to be for kids to come and just because there was music there, show up and listen to music and in a semi-controlled environment. I remember there's some gnarly stuff that happened downtown, but you can't really control that.
No.
But you know what I'm saying? Like it's deeper than a business, and I feel like if the business owner had more of a sense of, I guess I'm traditional in a sense, like kind of honor that space used to symbolize something deeper.
No, I just don't. They're coming at it from I don't know them personally, and again, I also have one failed business under my belt. So what do I know? You know what I mean? But and I'm not knocking them. Jerry's a great fest was so totally fun at Jerry's. I was temporary, all ages. You know what I mean? But it was definitely a nostalgic feeling, and I definitely miss that. And you know, again, no knock on Jerry's or Pizza's still good.
Not
and
at
that bands
all.
are, but it would be great to see kids there again and, you know, a lot. But, you know, someone's got to fill the void. It needs to happen eventually, you know. Maybe one of us artists needs to learn how to run a business, I think, you know.
Well, yeah, and maybe we should put our money where our mouth is and start our own all ages venue down the road. But, and no judgment towards Jerry's. It was just no, when I look at it now, I feel like
it's personal to you, and I get it because it was to me too. Like that was in Sir to Sky. That was a big deal when we were. Like, that was everything. That's all I looked forward to after school. You know, because I hated high school.
Same. Well, I mean, you feel protective of it. I guess when you walk by that place, you want to. I guess since so much memory, my personal history and my musical development is kind of attached to that place.
Absolutely,
and the places like the Gate that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It just makes me kind of pine for the good old days. But I think that's natural. Everybody, our culture loves nostalgia. Our culture loves to look back.
It's human too.
Yeah.
It's human.
So we're on the same page.
Let's hear another song.
Sure.
I would love to hear another song from you, and then maybe we can pick up where we left off here. Some good stuff about the hatch there.
Song's called Eternal Life.
We could live forever if it's in our hearts to escape the pain and never part. Think of all the moments we would know and see. Just follow after me. We could live for years until the sun is gone. Embrace what change and dreams may come. There would be no darkness in the light of love. There's more than enough. Oh, I believe in eternal life. Believe in me, all we have is time. Remember my name, hold on to the flame. And you believe in eternal life. Yes, you believe in eternal life. Yeah. could see forever with open eyes, trace the depths, scale the heights. We would see the whole world in a different light for all of our lives. We could hear the music of the heavenly, become like waves or fly so free. We could hear undying future melodies that make us dance and sing. Yeah, believe in eternal life, believe in me, all we have is time. Be free from your shame and burn like a flame. And you believe in eternal life, yes, you believe in eternal life. Yeah, you believe in eternal life, yes, you believe in eternal life.
It's another good one. What's what's the name of that one again?
Eternal Life.
Eternal Life. Okay,
Yeah.
the chorus. Hence, I should have picked up on
No,
that. Right?
it's okay. It's
What's
not
it,
always obvious.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What's it about again? I like to know a little bit about where your songs are coming from. You know,
I think it's
the best you can.
I think it's about confronting the impermanence of life and believing that there are some things that last forever. There maybe like is a reality that lasts forever. And, I have a personal faith and have a hope that there is something beyond this life, when you're enduring its hardships and thinking about losing people you love. A lot of people lost a lot of people, in the last 3 years. To think that, when this body stops, that maybe the soul continues.
Well, I think that it does.
Yeah, I hope that's the hope. I think faith and hope are a choice. It doesn't make rational sense to think this way, but it can be a choice. That we like. Hey,
so that's something you hold.
Practice.
That's something that you hold. What am I trying to say? It's something that's really important to you. That concept, and does that inspire a lot of fundamental song inspiration or?
I wouldn't
songwriting, I guess, to an extent, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like we were talking about before. It's part of who I am. If I am like a creative person, if I am a songwriter, it's not what I do. It's just who I am, and it informs.
But
what I
people
do.
are multifaceted, so like.
Yeah.
Some people I feel like maybe leave off parts of them when they write a song. So I don't know. I'm thinking out loud, but I feel like some people, it's just a bunch of angry songs, and it's like you're not angry all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's kind of why I asked. Is like maybe some people might not have the I guess lack of a better term spiritual element into their writing. Maybe they're only writing from this part of their mind or heart. I don't know. Know, but it's good to write from the full spectrum. I think if we can, you know what I mean?
You're right. Yeah. And, I'm no different. And so if I want to be authentic, if I want to be honest, I'm just going to be vulnerable and reveal that part of myself and the questions that I ask. And,
awesome.
The kind of journey I've had in belief in God and belief in, I guess a life of faith, kind of a framework, a code of ethics, to deal with like the things that are metaphysical and eternal. That's mysterious. That's out there. And I think that might be something that people avoid talking about or maybe, but I'm not afraid to be personal. Even if, all my songs are maybe an extension or expression of myself. If they get rejected or ignored, I feel like I take that personally, but I try not to, I guess, recently, but
it's hard.
It is hard. And so just to like put yourself out there and be vulnerable and to be misunderstood, sometimes it's painful. But yeah, I think it's clear to me that there have been songs done to death about what is observable and empirical, but not necessarily what we don't understand, the mysterious, the spiritual, the metaphysical, that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I'm not afraid to go there, and
that's really cool, dude. I think that's awesome, dude. That's the kind of stuff that I want heard on the podcast about where the songs are come from. Kind of leads me to another question too. It's kind of in that same vein, and I'd like you to chime in on it too. We've all been playing music for a long time. We're I think, are you married too, Sky?
No.
Okay, so but either way, still, but you're married, so obviously it applies to you. But we're not doing music because it's cool, because it gets girls.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're in your 30s and 40s and you're like, oh, you're in a band, like that's a lot of the normies, so to speak. That's kind of maybe the reaction you get. Not all of them, but normies. I just mean people who don't do this is take it seriously, I guess. Probably a good way to put it.
The layperson.
Yeah. Non-professional, or just somebody that maybe they don't play at all, or maybe they used to back in high school, and that's where you just kind of leave that. Because a lot of people, think that way, and that's, I guess, not arbitrarily wrong. It's just, that's not what I want, definitely not what I want to do. Clearly not what you guys want to do. And, not just to put it bluntly, playing music is a pain in the ass. It is. I love it.
It's heartbreaking, right?
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's an emotional roller coaster, of being mad and sad and happy, trying to finish a song lyrically, and then keeping your band together, or whatever means you're doing it. So it's time consuming. So I want to know, why do you guys do it? It's the payoff is probably a lot more personal, I'm guessing, but I want to hear the best you can answer. You know what I mean? There's no wrong answer to this question, but why do you guys like doing? We can start with Sky on this one if you like.
I feel like I almost, in a way, I feel like I don't have a choice. I feel like it's just such a part of me that when I'm not doing it, something feels wrong. So I have to incorporate it into my life somehow.
I think that's a good answer.
Right. It's, thank you. It's like, I think it takes a moment to figure out how I can incorporate it into a paying gig. And I've tried multiple ways, and we've done it, like I tried to be in a touring band. And then after that, I went and got to do film music and composition down in Los Angeles with a film composer. And then after that, I started teaching music, and I found a lot of joy in getting to share what I've learned about music along the way with my students.
Nice.
And so being able to do that and continue to perform and continue to create and produce, and trying to find a balance between those three things is essentially what I'm trying to figure out, like the right balance now.
Yeah. So like, to put simply, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a part of who you are. It doesn't feel right to not do it, and those three, I guess, mediums is the way you facilitate and balance that
for sure,
that urge or desire to want to create music, or pass the baton to the youngins, so to speak, maybe, and keep it going.
I mean, essentially, you're essentially passing the baton, whether you know it or not, to whether that's students or people listening to your music, right? Yeah. You're passing on whatever it is. It's like, for me, like, I don't have kids.
Yeah.
And so I kind of consider my job and my students, like, I'm passing on my knowledge to others, whether that be through them picking up how to play music or them just enjoying the music I create.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true, because I remember, I watched your shows in the past, and I watched Jason's shows in the past, and you guys didn't give me any lessons. We barely knew each other. We knew, you and me knew who each other were, I think, but, we didn't know each other. But I was still getting something out of just watching you guys play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's in some way it affects you positively, even if it's not even in the same world stylistically, right? But you were like, there's just something, it puts something in your head, and it inspires you to go do your own thing,
Yeah. And as cool as listening to recorded documents of music is, there's nothing that compares to watching it being created in front of you.
I love live music,
Yeah. It's just, there's just that aura of like someone creating a thing and you're there.
And the way it is in that moment. But
yeah.
What about you? I'm guessing there might be some similar answers, but maybe some that are different, because you're Jason and he's Sky.
I'm similar in the way that we're definitely aligned in that I believe that it's part of who I am.
Sure.
Just it's not something I do. It's, I need to be creative where I feel sick and I feel lost. I need to write music where I feel, sick. But as far as like releasing it and sharing it, that's been a journey for the last 10 years because I feel like I was really bold in being able to get up there and share, be a performer, be an artist, but I've never been a competitive person. I felt kind of lost in that when I was pursuing music full time and being, like we had a record released and good distribution and we were on tour nationally. And then, it didn't, the dream didn't pan out like the way I built it up in my head. And that was disappointing to me. And I felt like if they're ignoring this album and if they're indifferent toward these songs, they're ignoring me and they're indifferent to me. And like who's deciding who's in and out, I had these kind of conspiracy theories, but just to compare myself to other people wasn't productive. It wasn't healthy. It kind of stole my joy from doing it. And it took me a long time to get back to it. I had just this mountain of half finished songs and, to work on that and just be like, you're going to do this, not because it's going to make money or cause you to, to be successful in an industry. But because it's who you are. It's like show people who you are, just like you did when you were first starting out a band and you were just transferring those stories and transferring that information to other people. And it was an exchange. It was, sharing, like you were talking about. You get something out of it, you put it out there, it's positive, it's not, tearing anybody down. And if other people in your community succeed, it's not taking anything away from you. No. It's our community's better for it.
And I'd say too, if you maybe count that go easy on me with the choice of words, but like if you consider that, say, in some way, shape, or form, a perceived failure, or at the time felt that you were failing, we can. It depends on how you frame it. That could be good because then you get better at whatever it is you care about that you're trying to get better at. Whether it be in being more inspired to write more songs and say screw the record label stuff, like that's I can relate. I mean, I'd never on a record label, but I can only imagine I could relate to that. I kind of somebody, you know what I mean? Or some people might, if they're depending on how they're framing it, might want to let that light a fire under their butt a little bit. And I'm going to keep doing me. And if they don't like it too bad, you hear those stories too. You know what I mean? But everybody's different. There's no wrong way to do it.
No. And there's space for, there's room at the table for you, to be your authentic, unique self and bring something like new stories and new ideas and new
and you don't need a label for that if you don't want there to be.
But something that I think Sky and I connected with was, we're both published songwriters and we have a lot to offer this community. And so whether we do it for ourselves, I think like for a while it was just kind of doing it to, as an exercise and, doing it to please myself. But in the last, 5 years or so, I've felt a lot of satisfaction in giving myself away and collaborating with other people. Just the way he has with his students. I'm a father, I have 4 kids, but I want to believe that there's hope. Like rock and roll is kind of disappearing, and that it was so important to me, growing up. I don't want to see it disappear. I don't call me like a traditionalist or just living in the past, but it just had this profound impact on me. I want to preserve it. I want to keep writing songs like that, and I want to in any way, if there is, a next generation, I want to build them up and support them. Cause when we were talking about before, I feel like that's, definitely a part of who I am too. Not just, what I want to do is I'm a father, I am a teacher, I am a mentor. And so I want to continue to kind of live that out too in music.
To add to what you're going to say too, and of course chime in, you talked about it first, or for a while, it was primarily for you. And then now you're noticing some joy in giving what you're creating to people, essentially. But playing it for them, recording it, whatever way it is. And it's art, right? So there's not like some kind of formula for it, but a lot of times I think it's better probably in that order, even if there's not a lapsed time of years of I'm doing this for me, and now I'm going to do it for other people. Maybe it's just a month or a day or an hour or whatever. But I guess what I'm getting at, like, could you imagine seeing Johnny Cash? Like, no, he doesn't even like his songs. It probably wouldn't be convincing. Maybe he wouldn't have wrote good songs. Supposedly, I'm not no expert, but like he wrote stuff that like wasn't what was popular. You know what I mean? Hence like the whole outlaw thing with Waylon and Willie, and same with the punk rock bands, I'm sure at first that we grew up listening to when we were in Jerry's Pizza. I'm sure there was a point where they weren't popular, and to an extent they were doing it for themselves. But like, I don't know, as a consumer of music, I want to see guys want to do it for themselves, so it's as good as it can be when it comes to me listening to it.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. You know what I mean? Like a little bit selfish, but if you're doing it for yourself and it kind of lights the fire a little bit, so you can make a good product and then, put it out there. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does.
You know?
And it causes me to think about what Sky and I are doing right now too, outside of High Voltage Arcade and outside of, collaborating with each other, is we're collaborators with other local artists.
Sure.
Sky's supporting Unith and like, he has a lot to offer. He's, so gifted and, just making that band sound great.
Right.
And they're from our community. We're proud of them and how they're, like a part of the music scene. And again, it takes nothing away from us for them to succeed. And I'm doing that with an artist called Nate Parrish. Shout out to Nate Parrish.
You guys are keeping punk rock alive, man.
Trying. But that was really cool is Nate.
I need to catch him live. I haven't got to catch him yet.
You should have him on the podcast. He's a really great, interesting guy, super talented songwriter. I really feel like he's.
Me and Ellen bumped into him a few months. We need to talk. We need to get in touch with him. Yeah.
He's a great lyricist too. And so he moved to Bakersfield from the Bay Area. Like I think they were in like wine country for a while, like
Napa
Valley. That's where they lived before, and they came to Bakersfield, and everybody was like, "What were you thinking?"
Should have stayed in Napa.
But they really love it. Like I'm not going to speak for him, but he loves it here, and
That's cool.
He's a great songwriter, and we kind of we kind of have that shared vocabulary of social distortion and MXPX and face to face and that's how I started. I started on bass, and I was like the bass player that people got along with in punk bands, and that was cool. My entry into the scene. And so to do it now, like it's almost like a full circle moment to do like kind of modern
because I
punk
saw
rock
the thing
again.
You were playing a little bit of bass for him, weren't you?
I did.
On
I
a
started out
recording
as
or something like that.
So on his first record, I'm a Wreck, which is great. Go check that out. I played bass, and it just felt so good. Again, to just like give myself away. It's not about like me shining here, but it's about like supporting my friend and being a part of something that we both believe in.
Bass in a band like that's so fun.
It is. It's So my bass playing's on there. I got some background vocals also on the second album that he released, Soul Surgery. And we're playing local shows, and it's really fun, really rewarding, to just get out there and perform again, because that's also been something I shied away from a long time, is just getting out there and playing the songs. Always recorded, but playing live has changed, I guess. But
for sure. Sorry.
How is that for you? I mean, like
playing live.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah. That's a really good question. I think we talked about that a little in the Dancing Tom episode. Harder for rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
Locally, it's harder. It's harder to find a place to play. No knock on Dylan. Shout out to Dylan, Niner, 3 Days in Space, Plan B Productions, did Fest.
So cool.
Great. Haven't made 3 Days in Space because I'm always playing a gig when it's going on, or dad stuff or whatever. But tons of cool bands.
Yeah.
I want that, but I want it every weekend in because I was apparently spoiled in high school and I didn't even know it. Yeah.
There should always be 12 bands playing.
There should be 12 bands. It should be like from 3:30 till 1 a.m. just like back then. No, but Dave is doing some stuff with the Woolworths building. Maybe that'll help out. There's live shows up, but a lot of it's more laid back stuff, which I love that too. It's not that I like one better than the other, but I mean, I started on rock and roll and punk rock.
Right.
My first favorite band was Boston, and then it went to AC/DC, and loud, distorted Les Pauls and stuff.
Yeah.
And you just... That's there, but there's not as many venues. There's tons of bands doing it. There's a lot of bands, but there's not as many venues facilitating that. There are some great venues that are doing live music, but it's a different thing. It's not as abrasive. They're definitely not going to be a punk rock band in a lot of the places. These are places that I play at, that I watch people play at, that I love. So it's not a knock on the business, but it's more like dinner or wine type atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. I want to see the other end of the other side of the coin too.
The community's primed for it too.
Yeah.
I think this is, I for me personally, the lockdown and the pandemic was kind of a big reset button on my life.
Yeah, for the whole community.
Yeah. And so, I know it is for a lot of people. But I also know a lot of other people that had like kind of a different perspective where they got to kind of continue their growth on things that they had started before. Yeah. For me, it was like a big reset. Like so many things in my life basically completely changed that year.
Yeah.
And I had to rebuild myself essentially from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I kind of started really asking myself, like, especially lately, it's like, what do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be spending my energy?
Right.
And kind of getting in touch again with that that inner child, the intuition, rather than like, what do I want to be doing versus what do other people want me to be doing? Like, where is my purpose in this in this community? And I feel like this is the time and place to be doing that, because there's opportunities to, and there's a lot more people performing. There's like what you were saying, there's like a lot more chill vibes, but there's also places that we can expand, and we're starting to realize that. Yeah. And I think I'm really curious to see, and I'm really hopeful to see how the music scene in Bakersfield expands over the next 5-10 years.
I'm excited about it. It's already been exciting, and then I think it's just going to be even cooler.
Like the fact that we're doing this right now is awesome, and that we have this space to do this. This is great.
The fact that you guys are here doing it with us is cool.
So, and that was kind of why I started wanting to work with Jason. I wanted to, do things fresh, and like I've known Jason for a while, and I had the opportunity to start writing with him. I was like, hey, this is great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can throw him an idea, and 30 minutes later, he comes back to me with a verse and chorus, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then I start putting, it's just like a natural give and take.
Totally. That's chemistry is everything when you're jamming with people.
Can I just share how I envy you though? So, I
don't think I've heard that too many times.
Well, okay. So, I mean, no regrets, but, for the last 10 years, I could have been playing covers in well-attended places like, Sandrini's and other spaces. I had friends that
they barely even have music now,
but still, like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't grow up doing covers, I didn't learn guitar. Like I didn't, practice tabs and learn other people's songs. And so I don't have that kind of repertoire of cover songs like some of our community does. And I kind of envy that. But at that time when cover bands were kind of, really
hot,
I guess so. I saw local artists, with original songs kind of be treated as wallpaper, from my angle and just, my lens. They were being ignored. They were like, you're just background music while I try to like get a phone number or get drinks, because this business is not a music venue. That's not the thing. It's not like Chain Reaction. It's not like the Troubadour. It's not like a place where
Jerry's.
Yeah, they're like, we're not going to feed you. We're not going to we don't have a alcohol license. We're here to watch music. You know.
Yeah.
And so that was what I was conditioned to accept as this is what I want to do. And when I was on tour, those are the venues that we played. We didn't play bars. We played all ages venues.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And and like. Cool. Community, spaces and VFW halls and wherever they got creative, like with DIY venues and everything. But I never learned well to navigate playing bars.
Yeah,
I just felt a little bit uncomfortable and insecure, and I've worked on it, but I just feel like a person like you have such confidence and you just go for it. So
I don't and still don't always feel very confident, but
you hide it well.
Well, thank you. But prior to doing what I'm doing now with music and playing at just tons of gigs all over the place solo, I was always in a band and I was never singing, and I didn't realize till recently how scary it is to sing in front of people. I wasn't even worried about it till I got up in front of everybody. I was like, holy crap. But the band in the past too that I was in a band that did pretty good locally in between late 2011 and 2015 when we finally broke up. Mm-hmm. We just didn't really care. I think we're just kind of older, not super old, but older. So a little detached, and none of us really played shows in a while. And we just kind of did our thing and bashed, and we were way too loud for everywhere we played. And somehow people liked it for some reason. And we were exciting live. Now, were we very tight? No. But we did that as a group, so I think in that time, it wasn't really, I could just kind of sit there and hide behind the guitar and do what I've been doing at that time for 10 years and have a lot of fun doing it, and people seem to enjoy it with us.
I think it's because you guys were loud enough to make people notice, maybe is what it is. So,
they had to leave the bar or pay attention to somebody spitting beer or riding on somebody's shoulders. It was it was crazy.
That sounds rock and roll to me.
It was nuts.
Because I think a lot of times in the bar situation is like you had mentioned, Jason, about bars as people are there because of the business and the alcohol and things like that. And they just kind of overlook the music. And I think a lot of people don't realize what they're missing. And if they just opened their ears and listened, they would realize they would enjoy these original songs that are being played.
Cause we had a killer front man too, Ben Eccleston. He was so good.
Sweet.
So I didn't have to do anything. It just banged on power chords. Almost, But
you're a true believer, man. You keeping rock and roll alive, and I know it's only rock and roll, but I like it. Yeah, that's simple enough for it to exist.
Well, let's hear another one of your songs.
Okay.
And then you guys are full of tons of cool stuff to talk about. This is turned out to be an awesome interview. Let's hear another song though.
Okay.
And
this is a song called Survive in America.
Blood for blood, eye for an eye. Good people under pressure on their knees as they ask God why. White flag yet. Revolution is the sound of the wheel as we spin roulette. I ain't your country, man. I don't have national pride. I got no country. I'm just doing what I can to get by. Out in our country, forcing families to run and hide. Got no country, they're just doing what they can to get by. Survive in America. Silence is deafening tone. We're forced to listen to their mission and their vision when we got our own. One people's voice is like a storm. Here from the battle is a song in the sound that you can't ignore. I ain't your country, man. I don't have national pride. Got no country, I'm just doing what I can to get by. Out in our country, forcing families to run and hide. They got no country, they're just doing what they can to survive. Survive in America. Survive in America.
Sounded good. Cool. It's really good, man. You're sounding really good.
Thanks.
Wanted to get into so it seems like everybody's got like some show they saw when they were in high school or junior high, or somebody on TV, some band, or some song they were obsessed with. I know I do, but all the above, that like really lit a fire under their butts to want to do music. Really inspired, maybe even like too much. We're like, okay, you need to listen to other music. You know what I mean? But like, I was guilty of that. I know that. What was one or all the above? Shows, records, artists that really got you going, that made you like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. So I had I guess a pretty different upbringing than most. My dad was a pastor at a church, and that faith tradition of that church was to not use musical instruments.
Oh.
So we were just like
What
singers.
denomination is that?
Churches of Christ.
Churches. Okay.
Yeah, and so I grew up in the church, and my brother and I both became like career musicians. Playing instruments. Yeah. But we did hear a lot of like hymns and good music. But there were bands that were approved by my parents for me to listen to.
Yeah.
Like MXPX and like that Tooth and Nail.
Probably like the Supertones and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
for sure.
They were good.
So that I think that made the connection between this. This is my parents' music. They liked other stuff too. Like my dad liked Elton John and all the classic rock and that kind of thing too. So that was cool. But I just like kind of made that connection. Like this is my music,
Yeah.
And think about like bands like Nirvana that were paradigm shifting and sneaking a way to watch MTV, at a friend's house because it wasn't allowed at my house. We weren't allowed to like mainstream kind of. I guess the label is secular music, but I mean, there's no difference between secular and whatever people perceive to be sacred. I think all music is sacred. But watching MTV, I like seeing the visuals, some music videos, hearing like paradigm shifting bands like Nirvana. That I don't think that kind of movement will ever happen again. Because
Probably not.
I don't know, or maybe just
hopefully I'm wrong here.
Yeah, in the way that we understand it, I guess. Maybe in my kid's lifetime, but. And then local bands, I think I mentioned Diary for sure. I was really inspired by Pablo Alaniz and his songwriting and his kind of presence. I'm not a virtuoso musician. I play instruments to kind of serve my songs. They're like tools to kind of get a song out. But then I looked at bands like Sky's band growing up. He's really gifted, musically and technically, and to see them perform, I guess.
You mean the Lost Ocean or the?
Lost Ocean, Vow and Volition, even The Last of Us. That was a band a long time ago.
I remember seeing the Lost Ocean. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to figure something out because I'm not gonna be able to ever do that. Like, I'm gonna have to get good at something that's like easier.
Yeah, that band for me was a product of learning music theory in college.
Oh, really? Yeah, 'cause I remember I was like,
that and Radiohead probably.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
getting really into that world,
Yeah, but it's a good band too. You know what I mean? It's just,
oh man,
you're apparently a lot more mature than I was because at that age I've been like, that Radiohead sucks. That's boring. I just want to hear ACD.
It wasn't
the way
until
it
like
was.
junior or senior in high school when it clicked for me. I think
Yeah.
because like when I grew up, I had like a slightly different version of what Jason had, where. Well, not slightly. It was actually kind of completely different. We like my parents kind of just let me listen to whatever I wanted. And I remember one of the first CDs I got was the Green Day's Dookie.
Oh, I remember that album.
And I got it at Swap Meet for like $5.
Still listen to it.
Me too.
So good.
And I remember I looked through the word. Like my parents, we didn't grow up my parents didn't go to church. I never went to church. But my parents were still like, it was still like, we had good values, moral values, and there wasn't any. So I remember there were swear words in the liner notes, and I was just like, I felt really guilty. And like I brought it to my mom. I was like, this album has bad words in it. She said, well, if it bothers you, don't listen to it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then that was just me. Like that's
was cool. You had that kind of relationship with your folks though, that you were able to do that. You know what I mean?
Like they kind of would get weird when I bring home like a 9 Inch Nails album or something.
I mean,
like
I can't blame them there. I mean, I like 9 Inch Nails,
but for me, I was all like, I love songs, and I think this is where the contrast for me and Jason is like, I love songs. I like really connecting with them. But the thing that really drew me into music was like the sound design and the timbre and how the music was put together. And like, so I listened to something, and like I remember the first time I listened to the Weezer's Blue album, and the first time on My Name Is Jonas, when the guitars first kick in, I was like,
dun, 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 dun,
I want to figure out how to make a record sound like that.
Yeah.
Like that's what always drew me in, and so I like focusing on sound. And that's why I love working with Jason. It's like he brings these songs, so then I can like morph them into this like little
you did
product.
Phenomenal job on that single. And the writing's great. Sonically, it's awesome.
High Voltage Arcade.
Yeah, High Voltage Arcade. Well, shoot, why not? Let's get into that a little bit now.
Yeah.
We kind of, I like how we're kind of swinging around on different directions. It makes for a good conversation, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
for me,
different
leading
though
there-
from what I remember you. I remember the Rocky V and Step Sunday. There's and this is not an insult at all, but there's less guitar as far as what's driving it up front, but it's really catchy. Even pulls on the heartstrings a little bit, even though I didn't know at first time I listened to it exactly what it was about.
Yeah.
A lot of synth sounds cool. How did you guys get together and decide? You kind of touched on that slightly, but COVID times, what got you guys going on wanting to get that project going, and what are you doing with it now, and what do you plan on doing with it in the future?
Yeah, so I started really getting into sound design, but specifically, like I bought a Sequential Prophet 6, which is like this classic synth, poly synth. I could play 6 notes at the same time. And I realized once I started playing that thing, I was like, I've always wanted to make music like this, like using this thing. Cause like, before I would always get like a Moog. Like growing up, I would always see like punk bands or like rock bands, and they would have like the guy that has like the Moog synth on stage.
Wait.
So, like the little mini one, right?
Educate me here. I didn't know that was a thing, being able to play 6 notes at once.
Yeah. So like,
So that shows how little I know about, you know what I mean?
So like going to rock punk shows, like the synth that people always have was like a little Moog synth where they just played like single lines.
The
like
keyboard, there'd be like one up top.
Yeah.
And they'd be like the Cars or something.
Yeah, like the Cars.
Where it's just like a single line.
Or the
that's
Lebecs.
playing.
The Lebecs had a Moog
The
too.
Lebecs, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. And so I was like, growing up, I was like, I want to get a Moog. And I finally did. And then I realized when I got it, I was like, it didn't really resonate with me anymore. And because I realized growing up as a piano player and a keyboardist, I like playing chords. I like playing, and the Moogs usually only you can play 1 or 2 notes at the same time.
I didn't even ever think that thought never crossed my mind because I never touched that stuff.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me. And then I was like, I started
cool.
finding about the Prophet, and like, I was like, okay. So then I bought one. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I found out Jason was kind of looking into, I always knew he was like into like the synth pop and 80s. We had toyed around with like, with playing the Bowie tribute show that we did.
That was really fun.
Did you see Stardust?
Yeah, we played a lot of David Bowie tribute show at Tembler with a lot of local musicians, and it was really good.
A couple months after he passed.
Super fun.
Right on.
It was one of those ideas for me that I was like, you know when you talk about, you're like, hey, we should do this cover show with your friends.
Yeah.
And then nothing ever happens about it.
Yeah.
I realized, I was like, I had that idea, and I realized if I don't push on this, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I just made it happen. And so I got a bunch of people together. We put together like 20 Bowie songs. Right?
Sweet. That's cool.
And that was kind of one of the first times that I really got to actually play with Jason, right? Because you played a lot for that show.
You mentioned that you liked playing chords as opposed to like single note melodies. What got you going playing in the first place? Were you classically trained with a teacher, or did you just start banging on it and listening to Elton John songs or something? What was your background?
Yeah, I started playing piano in 4th grade, and I did start off as like, classically trained, like, learning how to read music. But then I went really quickly into like learning how to read lead sheets where it just has the melody and the chords. So I had to like fill in, and like figure out the vibe of like what the song is. So I'm listening and then trying to fill in the
notes. A little
notes.
more room there for interpretation.
Exactly. And I always liked being like, I like music that way, and like learning by ear and hearing things and finding it.
Me too. Yeah.
I feel like, the notes are just a representation of what you should be doing anyways. So the quicker you can get away from not reading, the better of a musician you are, right?
Off the page and into your heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless the job is to read it that day. Like there's something about like the musicians that work down in LA that, they arrive to the studio and now they play 2 hours of music that they've never read before in their entire life. It's like, that's a gig too.
Yeah. But we like learning the rules so we can break them too, though.
Yeah.
Funner it feels.
Yeah.
It is. That's a good way to think about it. Is you have to have like a foundation first. You have to actually kind of know what you're doing, and then you just throw all the rules out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like music projects, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with just doing like whatever comes out of you. And I think there's so much great music that comes that way. But for me, I started realizing one of the things that I like is having like a structure or an idea of like, what is my palette going to be, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I kind of fell into this style of music called synthwave, which is a like a subgenre of electronic music that's very much kind of nostalgic of the 1980s, but not exactly the 1980s because it's
sounds current.
Yeah, it's like it's what you imagine the 80s sounding like, but not actually what they actually sound like.
Yeah. It's just 80s vibes.
80s vibes, and I was like, I love this. I would love to make some music with this sonic palette, but using songs. And then that's when I kind of ran into Jason, and I was like, we started talking about like High Voltage Arcade and like going there as kids, and I showed him some pictures.
So would that sonic palette be the foundation of what inspired Sonic or High Voltage Arcade?
Yeah. So like Prophet synths, like electronic drum kits, but also using like, epic like reverb washed guitars and like, like this
U2-y type things, sort of.
Yeah, sometimes, but you can also, if you have
I'm just listening.
Oh, I feel like you can also do like kind of like go the other way with it and go like more like the 80s rock lead guitar kind of stuff too as well,
a little bit of
harmony guitar parts and stuff.
Striper.
Yeah.
I hope
and it
so.
just kind of it's like this amalgamation of all that stuff, and it kind of morphs it into this own cool thing.
And you guys are working on
we're working on an album
right now, as you told me, and EP, LP.
It's gonna be a full LP.
Nice. How many songs?
I think we have
roughly
10 or 11 in the running, but
and they all gonna be. And I don't want to box it in or any of that, but for lack of a better way to put it, is it going to be in the
synthwave genre?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of like that single, but obviously it's going to be an album, but it's going to be in that genre, right?
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think we're gonna push boundaries for sure within the genre, but and I think that's another thing is just to learn your own limitations, because I know my way around a vocal melody and some lyrics, but Sky's just. He's more of a composer and a producer than I am, and just knows where everything fits and knows how to just kind of elevate and enhance music. And
composer part is in like structure of the song, has a good
like
feel for that.
Arrangements, even like challenging me to get like certain performances, when I sing on the recordings.
Sure.
I don't know how to engineer and produce myself well when I'm just, recording in a vacuum, and to collaborate with him is just like, I feel like it's just really exciting. We have a good chemistry, and I think like I don't know, I guess our values are just aligned, just like what we appreciate about music and what we want out of music. And so it's exciting to do that. Obviously there's, when you get to a certain point in life, there are competing loyalties, and you're working full time, and
you got the kiddos.
I have 4 kids, and so it's not happening super fast, as maybe like in the old days when you would just go to B2 and record an EP in a weekend. But I think it's worth taking the time for sure. And we hope our audience is gonna feel it's worth the wait.
I think a lot happened when we were younger writing this music, though, that we could look back on and realize the amount of time that we spent making music and trying to write stuff. It made it so that the other things in our life we didn't focus on. Like that's why we didn't like high school as much, and like we weren't, because we wanted to get through the day so we could go play music, right?
Of course.
That was the whole thing. Like, and for me, a lot of my other parts of my life suffered as a result of that, right? Like I wasn't as good of a student, right?
You weren't as well-rounded as you could have been, maybe, but
I wouldn't say that like, I don't say that as like I wish it was different. It was just like that was just the result of like me just being so in love with just making music. That was it. Like I couldn't do anything else.
I wasn't well-rounded, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
No regrets. No regrets.
Yeah. So now it's a lot of fun because since he focused more on songwriting, but we both have our own like little ideas that complement each other. So he'll send me, a melody and a guitar line, and I'll listen to it and think, I was like, oh, actually I hear a different progression. So I'll just get rid of the guitar and then try different chords underneath it. And I'll send him like, what do you think of this? And be like, well, like this, but then we try to make a mix of them, right? And so I can try to put some new sounds underneath his voice that maybe Jason wouldn't normally have thought of. And
never, I wouldn't.
Right.
And so it's so good.
Yeah. And so to me, that's where collaboration really spark something, right?
Yeah.
Is where you take someone's idea and then you intersperse it with your own ideas, and the new thing is something that couldn't have existed otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
that's the important part about having a band or a duo.
That's literally what life is, right? That's like, it's like water's nothing without those three molecules, right? It's like, or like, something emerges. It's like an emergent property of life, right? So it's like,
I have a much more simpler and less intellectual metaphor for me. It's steak is not good without the salt rub and then the, then the garlic and the butter you put on it, and then bam, good food. But without food, it's just a piece of meat sitting there not being good. But anyway, that was not a good metaphor. The molecules are better, but
we'll take
Alan,
it. Yeah.
Alan's
making me hungry.
But and what I want to know too, this chemistry, obviously it's good. In a few minutes here, I want to hear the single.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked to hear it. And eventually will be recorded on a 2022 album, Bands of Bakersfield. There'll be no other version like what we're going to hear today of this single, I don't think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But before that, though, when might we hear the new album eventually? Again, I know you're not in a rush, which is important.
Yeah.
But are we thinking
right now
next summer or I don't know?
I don't have a deadline, but I think Sky and I have a meeting scheduled of the 21st of this month to kind of just talk about things we've both been really enjoying, again, like collaborating with other people that have some momentum locally. So again, there's the songs are kind of in process right now. They're in varying stages of development. We did release a single, the High Voltage Arcade song that we'll be playing in a minute, and we recorded. We collaborated with some local filmmakers and made a music video too. Like first time I've ever been involved in a music video. I think Skyline.
Same. Drop their names of those filmmakers again.
So Keaton Punch, he's a brilliant. I guess he's a creative. He's a filmmaker. He's a really nice guy to hang out with and to collaborate with. Sky kind of started that conversation. He's like, "Hey, have you seen these music videos for this band Unith?" And they're kind of aligned with that genre, the synthwave genre that we like too.
Long-haired dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His drummer used to beat me up in jiu-jitsu. I know you do Unith is now. I knew that sounded familiar. Scott, they're awesome, dude. They played at jiu-jitsu's class over. So yeah, anyway,
that's rad.
I just had an ADHD moment and interrupted you, but that's where I first saw them, like way pre-COVID. I think it was like 16 or 17. I seen them playing there.
Yeah, I think I can pass the baton to Sky for the rest of the story, but
yeah, sorry about that, Jason.
Yeah, no. So good. I saw those videos. I was like, oh, we gotta get Keaton to make the video. Like, I know this is like up his alley, and it was a little bit of a manifest destiny moment where I was like, I saw that, I was like, he has to make it. Like, I don't see anything
Nobody
else.
died in the process of your manifest destiny.
No, you just had a torch and a pitchfork in his front door trying to get him.
I just all I did, and so I just sent him an email. And because I knew some people that knew him, right? And I was like, hey, you're like, oh yeah, just email him. I was like, okay. So I just emailed him. I was like, hey, here's our song, High Voltage Arcade. Mm-hmm. I saw the videos you did with Unith. I think you might enjoy this. Yeah. He's like, okay, cool. I'll take a listen this week.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, I get this email back saying, it's like, okay, I have an idea for the video. And he lists this whole like 7-paragraph thing, like the whole story.
Yeah.
The whole story that's actually in the video. Like, we basically didn't change anything because I just saw that. I was like,
so he put that kind of time into like the pre-production of it before he responded to your
no
email.
Idea.
Yeah,
that's legit.
Yeah.
And then after seeing that, we're just like, yeah, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it happen. Cool. So I just knew, I was like, I just need to ride the fire and make this happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Wise beyond his years for sure. He's a younger guy, and so super gifted. But yeah, that I think the story was pretty fully developed, and then it was a special time for me making the video because my oldest son is in the music video. He's the kid that's going to.
Oh, that's your boy.
That's my oldest son, Ford.
Was that one of the ones I saw when we bumped into each other at Walgreens?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my oldest son, Ford, the blonde one with glasses, and he's awesome and loves music, and so that whole, the way that song came about was High Voltage Arcade was an actual arcade in Bakersfield that Sky and I grew up going to. And again, we're just, kind of riding that nostalgia wave, and we're thinking about the good times And the song story kind of rose up really naturally for me, but the video story is something separate. And I feel like now, Sky mentioned they're kind of inseparable now. You know, you kind of you're gonna have to watch the video and to get the full experience, to get the full picture.
I loved both the song and the video. It's just good.
Cool,
you know
man.
what I mean, yeah.
Thanks for listening and watching.
Which, by the way, before I forget, and I didn't tell Alan this because he would beat me up, but I almost screwed this whole thing up because sometimes I don't communicate details on accident, and I didn't put AM when me and Jason scheduled this. So, dude, thank you so much. And tell your wife, even though I know her, thank you, because I'm sure there was some finagling there.
Yeah. Hi, Katie. Thank you.
We had it basically
Very supportive of the opportunities.
Booked at 10 a.m. So I thought, but didn't put PM to make a long story short. And then Jason's doing what mature adults do, me like, so I'm excited. Are we still on for 10 p.m.? I'm like, 10 p.m. And I'm like looking through the text messages and I'm like, I didn't specify. And then we went around and we were trying to finagle the thing. I was like, I'm gonna have to tell Alan, he's gonna be so pissed. But then Jason was able to figure it out. Long story short, he got in here at 10 a.m. You guys are cool. Another thing too, I would love to have you guys back on after the album is released. It'd be really cool to do something like that because I dig what you're doing.
We'll probably release some singles in between then and now too as well. Like get that seems like a great way to be able to like continue some vibe.
Totally,
So.
And then let me know when there's some gigs. A lot of times me and Alan like to show up to gigs and do a little bit of Insta filming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're
just getting started. We feel like we're just getting started.
Sure.
This is like the single and the video are like kind of like introducing the band.
Yeah. And it's good.
Thanks, man.
We were actually trying to figure out, because we wrote the song High Voltage Arcade before we realized we didn't even have a name for the band.
Yeah.
And then we're talking like, well, what are we going to name the band? We're just like,
High Voltage Arcade.
I guess it's just going to be High Voltage Arcade. We don't, and then so I was like, well, it's the band name, song name.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's it.
Well, when we were thinking back to all the esoteric local band names growing up, like Step Sunday and Vow and Volition.
What did Step Sunday mean?
So it's a portmanteau.
What? I don't even know what that is.
It's like three words kind of mixed together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so stepson and like Sunday.
I didn't even think of it that way.
It was kind of like I imagined a holiday where people that were, like when you have a blended family, you don't really feel super in place and super like you like belong. So Step Sunday was like a holiday to recognize those people that don't feel like they belong.
Nuts. Okay. See, I was thinking like step through, step over Sunday. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was where my mind went.
Like steps on day. Some people pronounce it like that. But again, it was like, I don't know.
What's Rocky V? I mean, I just
Rocky V was a Simpsons episode, straight up. Like it was
like
Bart,
like Rocky Balboa in the episode.
Yeah, Rocky V. He didn't call it Rocky 5, which is the Roman numeral like movie, the Sylvester Stallone movie. It was Bart was trying to learn Roman numerals in school, and then he gets lost in a zoo, and he knows that the lion, there's like a man-eating lion behind a certain Roman numeral door. And so he has to remember under pressure his Roman numerals, and he says he sees like the lion's not behind door number 5, and so he remembers like Rocky V, Adrian's Revenge. So
that's cool.
That's the door he opens, and that's good. Right. But so that was, I mean, Simpsons. Like what can be more important when you're in high school?
Right.
And we took ourselves seriously, but I think that was just kind of playful.
Yeah. I remember going to Rocky V shows. That's for sure. Man. Those are good times.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you guys like to mention before you kick off your single? Anything else you want to?
I just like to
talk about
shout out, all the people that are, just really making our musical community better. I feel like Nate Parrish and Unith and bands like Modern Wives. They're still rock and roll, like opening for Daughtry. I feel proud in those moments. I know those people, like they're just keeping the dream alive.
So many good
rock and roll alive.
Tons of good. Like I was talking about briefly, we're short on a couple of maybe rock and roll venues. We were not short on rock and roll bands.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, just inspire us still. Like Kyle and Lauren Appleton opening for Willie Nelson, and that's really cool. And just to kind of I guess it just like I was, us catching a glimpse at those venues when we were in high school, like this is what's possible. Like just start it, just do it. There's space for you. Like you're welcome. You belong, and there's your voice matters. Your story is unique, and there's space for it. It's needed. That's still happening. I mean, even on a global level, to think about Bakersfield bands, opening for more bands of note, and legends.
It's important too. It's important. Like, I think Bakersfield is like the third fastest downtown nationally to bounce back.
Yeah.
It's something like that, way up on the list, and a big part of that's music.
Yeah,
it's a huge part of it.
That's
It's
cool.
really important, like tangibly and objectively too, not just the subjective art void filling, which is that's important, for human stuff, but like economically, it's you know what I mean. So there's a lot of good stuff going on, I think. But yeah, that popped into my head, and I was like, I feel like that needs to be mentioned. The ripple effect that music may be having in this town. But yeah. Well,
I think, that's just a reminder. It's like reminding people, go out and see live music when you can. Try to make it like a part of your life, because I mean, that's the way that we connect with music, whether that is cover shows or chilled music. Like, make sure, try to see if there's some way that you can have live music in your life, because it's there's great musicians here,
helping local businesses, social stuff, hear stuff, meet people. Anyway, I cut you off, but
that's essentially it.
Yeah. Well, this was super fun, and I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna force you guys when your album comes out to do this again. Go ahead and play the song. It was super cool.
Before we go to the song, social media.
Oh yeah.
Where can they find you?
Talk to us about your social media.
So High Voltage Arcade singles available on all platforms for streaming: Apple Music, Spotify.
You can buy it on Bandcamp if you want the WAV file.
Right on.
Yeah, and we do have social media, like Instagram, I think Twitter as well.
Yeah, YouTube, I'm guessing.
YouTube, the music videos on YouTube. Please go watch that. That's really fun. And then I did the songs I was playing earlier from a project called All Yours, and you can find that music Bandcamp All Yours CA. So if you want to check out those songs, it's some other local people on that record are Zach Spear. He's awesome. He's such a good songwriter, and that was a really cool project to be a part of. But stay tuned definitely to High Voltage Arcade, because we're working to make that a reality for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Let's hear what's the name? Oh, go ahead, Alan.
One more thing, and you could find this podcast episode and others on our website at bandsofbakersfield.com.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah.
And this is called High Voltage Arcade by the band High Voltage Arcade.
Right.
Sweet.
was the sound, it was the sight. I couldn't pay enough to stay, but it was worth it just to play. Under cover of night, I snuck out and rode my bike, and I forgot about my friends just to see you again. I lose control and now I'm part of your design. You hold my gaze under a neon sky. I wanna hold you, but I'll have to wait in line. It's just a game. We only wanted the good old days, but we know everything must change. So we're paving the way to innocence and escape. Can you remember the joy and pain? Can you remember the sky and rain? Don't forget that we'd say actions speak louder than words, speaking through telepathy. When you're staring back at me, you are the mirror of my soul. You're the half to make me whole. Ignore the warning signs we're old enough to feel. Hallucinations are becoming real. To stay inside the dream, surrender to your will. It's just a game. We only wanted the good old days, but we know everything must change. So we're paving the way to innocence and escape. Can you remember the joy and pain? Can you remember the sky and rain? Don't forget that we'd say we'll always have high voltage arcade.
That was totally awesome. You guys want to get some breakfast?
Oh man.
I'm hungry.
Yeah,
You
man.
probably got stuff to do, but I'm gonna get eggs and bacon, I think.
Nice.
Eggs and bacon is the right thing for a Saturday morning.